Have you ever had someone in your life who acts like a friend, but something about the relationship doesn't feel completely safe? They smile with you, but sometimes their words carry hidden criticism. They support you in public, but occasionally undermine you in subtle ways. They're close enough to know personal things about you, yet their behavior leaves you feeling uneasy. These people are often called frenemies, part friend, part rival. And if you've had to deal with someone like this, you may have wondered if you're being too sensitive, too suspicious, or simply overthinking. But psychology suggests something important. Recognizing a frenemy isn't usually a sign of paranoia. In many cases, it's a sign of psychological awareness. People who notice complicated social dynamics often possess certain rare personality traits, qualities that make them more perceptive, thoughtful, and emotionally intelligent. So if you've realized that some people around you behave like frenemies, it may actually say something powerful about the kind of person you are. Here are 5 rare psychological traits you may have. The first trait is heightened social awareness. Research in social psychology by Professor Nalini Ambadi, known for her work on thin slice judgments, indicates that some people are especially skilled at noticing subtle emotional and behavioral signals in others. This means they can detect shifts in tone, body language, and facial expressions that others might ignore. If you've recognized someone as a frenemy, it may be because you noticed small inconsistencies. For example, maybe someone congratulates you but their tone feels forced, or they praise you publicly but later make comments that subtly diminish your accomplishments. While others might overlook these signals, you pick up on them. That doesn't mean you're suspicious. It means you're observant. And social awareness is one of the most valuable skills in navigating complex relationships. The second trait is strong emotional intuition. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, known for his research on emotional intelligence, explains that people with higher emotional awareness are often better at sensing the emotional intentions behind words. In other words, you don't just hear what someone says, you feel the emotional energy behind it. For example, a frenemy might say, "Wow, you're lucky that worked out for you," but something about their tone suggests envy rather than genuine happiness. Your intuition notices the difference. This ability to read emotional signals can sometimes feel uncomfortable, but it also protects you. It helps you understand people's true motivations and respond thoughtfully rather than blindly trusting every interaction. The third trait is psychological reflection. Research in psychology by Dr. Tasha Urich on self-awareness shows that reflective individuals tend to think deeply about their interactions and relationships. After social situations, they often replay moments in their minds and ask themselves questions like, "Why did that comment feel strange?" Or, "Why do I feel uneasy around this person?" This reflection helps you recognize patterns over time. For example, maybe you realize that someone only seems supportive when you're struggling, but becomes distant when you succeed. Or perhaps you notice that a colleague shares your ideas in meetings, but rarely acknowledges your contribution. By reflecting on these patterns, you gain clarity. And that clarity allows you to protect your emotional well-being. The fourth trait is a strong sense of personal boundaries. Psychology in the book Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend shows that people who develop healthy emotional boundaries are more likely to recognize when a relationship becomes unhealthy. A frenemy relationship often crosses these boundaries in subtle ways. Maybe someone constantly compares themselves to you. Maybe they make jokes that feel more like criticism. Maybe they share private information about you with others. If you notice these behaviors and feel the need to distance yourself, it's often because your boundaries are active. Your mind is signaling that something isn't balanced. And that awareness helps you avoid relationships that slowly erode your confidence. The fifth trait is emotional resilience. Research by psychologist Dr. George Bonanno on resilience shows that people who face complicated social dynamics often develop stronger coping abilities. Dealing with a frenemy can be emotionally confusing. You may feel conflicted because part of the relationship seems friendly, while another part feels competitive or critical. But navigating this complexity strengthens your emotional resilience. You learn to evaluate relationships more carefully. You become more selective about who you trust. And over time, that wisdom helps you build healthier, more supportive connections. Now that we've explored the traits that may help you recognize frenemies, the next question becomes important. How do you handle them, especially in environments where you can't easily avoid them, like the workplace? Here are 7 healthy ways to manage frenemies while protecting your peace. The first way is to observe rather than react immediately. Research by psychologist Walter Mischel on self-control suggests that pausing before reacting allows people to make more thoughtful decisions in emotionally charged situations. If a frenemy makes a subtle jab or competitive comment, reacting impulsively may escalate the situation. Instead, observe the behavior. Notice patterns. For example, if a colleague repeatedly takes credit for shared work, calmly documenting your contributions may be more effective than confronting them in anger. Observation gives you clarity and control. The third way is to communicate calmly and clearly. Research in interpersonal communication by psychologist Marshall Rosenberg highlights the importance of clear, non-aggressive communication. If a frenemy crosses a boundary, addressing the behavior calmly can sometimes reset the dynamic. For example, if someone interrupts you during meetings, you might respond with, "I'd like to finish my point before we move on." Clear communication shows confidence without escalating conflict. The fourth way is to document your work and contributions. Workplace psychology research by Adam Grant suggests that visibility and accountability can reduce unfair credit-taking and competitive behavior. If you're dealing with a frenemy who tries to undermine your work, keeping records of your ideas, emails, and project contributions can protect you. For example, summarizing meeting discussions in follow-up emails helps clarify who contributed what. This approach isn't about confrontation, it's about transparency. The fifth way is to build supportive relationships with others. Research by social psychologist Julianne Holt-Lundstad shows that supportive social networks reduce stress and increase emotional resilience. When dealing with a frenemy, it helps to strengthen relationships with colleagues who are positive, collaborative, and trustworthy. These relationships create balance. Instead of focusing on one difficult dynamic, you surround yourself with people who genuinely support your growth. The sixth way is to avoid unnecessary competition. Research in organizational psychology by Richard Ryan and Edward Deci suggests that cooperative environments promote healthier workplace relationships than competitive ones. Frenemies often thrive on competition. They compare achievements, measure success against others, and subtly try to outshine those around them. By focusing on your own growth rather than competing with them, you remove the fuel that feeds the rivalry. Your success becomes about progress, not comparison, and that mindset reduces tension. The seventh way is to protect your emotional energy. Psychologist Brian Little's research on personality and energy management suggests that people who consciously protect their emotional resources experience less burnout. Frenemy relationships can quietly drain your energy because they involve constant uncertainty. Instead of letting this dynamic consume your thoughts, focus on what you can control: your work, your values, your growth. Spend time with people who uplift you. Engage in activities that restore your energy. Your emotional well-being deserves that care. At the end of the day, encountering frenemies is something many people experience at some point in life, especially in environments where ambition, comparison, and competition exist. But recognizing these dynamics doesn't mean you're cynical, it means you're aware. And awareness is one of the most powerful tools you can have in navigating relationships. The fact that you notice these patterns suggests that you value authenticity, emotional honesty, and healthy connections. Those qualities are rare, because many people ignore uncomfortable signals simply to avoid conflict. You're choosing something different. You're choosing clarity. And that clarity helps you build relationships based on respect rather than hidden rivalry. So if you've ever questioned your instincts about someone who felt like a frenemy, trust that your awareness is a strength, not a weakness. It's guiding you toward relationships that are genuine, supportive, and aligned with who you truly are. If this message resonated with you, you're not alone in navigating these complex social dynamics. Subscribe for more psychology insights that help you understand your personality, relationships, and the hidden strengths behind your awareness. Because sometimes the very traits that make relationships more complicated are the same traits that lead you toward deeper wisdom and stronger connections.